Welcome Sudhir, welcome to Kompass Connect.
Thank you.
Your family moving from Africa to India.
You take me back in time. I was just 6 years old and my dad had to decide to kind of move the family because of the situation in Africa at that time.
The neighborhood of Grey Street, Durban, for instance, might easily be mistaken for an Indian city, the result of importing experienced labor for the sugar plantations some years ago.
Moving to London, coming back and starting a restaurant.
I wasn't able to really make much headway because I just felt, the environment wasn't that conducive at that time. It was like almost, from India, what do you know about advertising?
At this prime age of your life, you are looking forward to start the next inning again with filmmaking again. How does it feel?
Oh boy, that's a lot to kind of take in.
That's just not career changes. I mean, this is really epic. Really hats off to whatever you have done so far and what you're really looking forward to. So Sudhir, someone who has been behind the lens, you have seen a lot of life, and now as you are in this this phase again of filmmaking, writing scripts again, if you have to look Sudhir as a boy who when he came to India and you're looking India through the maybe from a window of a car when your father is driving your family around with you, how does it feel? What was the boy looking around? How does it feel, the journey so far?
Oh boy, that's a lot to kind of take in. You take me back in time. But somehow, that there are some memories which just get etched in you, I would say forever. They kind of become a part of your psyche. We were very little when we came here. I was just 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
And my dad had to decide to kind of move the family because of the situation in Africa at that time. And I think like a lot of, there were a lot of Asians in Africa, people from India who were staying there at that time. And about 95% of them probably chose to go to the UK or to the US because at that time you were able to do that. Right, it was a part of the colony, and you had a British passport, and you could just choose to go there.
Right.
But my dad decided to actually come to India, which again was not not the done thing. He hadn't been born here; he was born in Africa. He'd been lived his entire life there. He was around 40 at that time.
Right.
But he was very clear in his head that he just wanted to come to India. Right, the affinity that he had, I think, was very clear to see. And so I think it was a brave decision. Me and my brothers, we were all very young, all about 6, 7. So with a new, with a young family to actually move to another country. And then once we came here, we decided to, my dad, we went first to Delhi and then to Punjab because his sister was living there. But he realized pretty soon that, Punjab may not be necessarily the place that he wants to stay. He wanted, he'd seen the world by then.
Right.
Nairobi, where we came from, was very advanced. So we'd had a bit of a convent education there. And I think he saw the value of that, being able to speak, move around in an English-speaking world and be able to hold your own. So in Punjab, the schools were all in the local dialect, Punjabi and things like that. So we were there for some time. But then I think very quickly on he cottoned on that I'll need to get my kids into a place where they can, get a convent education, so to speak. So did an interesting thing, decided to drive around India to see where to settle down.
And this is which year?
1970.
Okay.
So that's going back, it's 50 plus years, 55, 60 years ago. And I was there with him and my mom, and so we drove around.
All the way from
all the way down, and just
country,
just looking around, seeing which would be a good place to settle down. And I still remember the day we came to Bangalore, and somehow something just clicked. There were a lot of similarities. It was a cantonment. It had a kind of a British kind of a feel, and on all that. And the fact that it was so far down south and we didn't know anybody here, it didn't faze him at all,
So you just randomly traveling, there was not that you had relatives here?
No agenda, no, absolutely nobody. We didn't know a soul. In fact, in those days, there were hardly any North Indians down south, so-called, right? I mean, anybody up north was, from there, and every down south was Madrasi, that kind of thing still existed, right? But I think, with a young family, to be able to, decide that, okay, this is where I want to settle down and set up roots was a very brave thing to do. And kudos to him. Not just that, I think, that generation really had something in them, I think, that ability to really, not be overawed by any situation and have faith in yourself. He was an entrepreneur. I mean, he was a businessman, but a very hard-working person at heart throughout his life. So I think he didn't feel that, what am I doing or whatever. Wherever he is, he's just going to make the best of it.
So do you have memories? Was this like a decision which was taken like with the family conversation, or he just kind of just said, okay, this is...
I think we were too little as kids. But obviously my dad and mum would have, spoken to each other about it. But mainly my father, I think. He was the one who was driving force behind it. When we came from Africa, the circumstances we came in were also such that it's not that you were, like a rich guy coming here and all that. We were okay. We were well off. But coming to a place and then having to settle down and set up, with a family of 3 and another one on the way. My brother was born when we came here in 71. So it was really like that. But then coming in here and, setting up a business and,
that's really so brave of your dad. And looks like, Sudhir, I mean, from you have taken on his kind of thinking or way of taking life. I mean, if you really look at it, when you settled in from your other brothers, they moved in, he established the business and all good, but you had a different outlook. You had your own way of looking at things, and it looks like you took your own time in terms of finding your place.
I think schooling was very good, very joyful. School days were and he just let us be. You do what you want because that's part of your growing up. So we had Bangalore in those days was really something else. I think only people who stayed in Bangalore in that time will really know what it was
keep
like.
Hearing so much about it. Yeah.
Absolutely, it was just the place to be. So it was a very good experience growing up. But then as one got older and you came to, so I was very interested in art all through. I just had a natural flair for it. I used to draw and paint and things like that. Not with any kind of thing that this is what I want to do as a career, but I used to just do it because I enjoyed it a lot. Come grade 10 and then you need to move into your plus 2s and all that. It almost seemed to be, there was very little choice in those days.
Right.
You did science or you did commerce, and you got pushed into one of those two.
Correct.
So I just kind of followed very naturally, did commerce as a plus 2.
Okay.
But in those 2 years, I just realized that this is not what I want to do in life. I wanted to do something that, I was able to, something creative, for lack of a better word. I just wanted to be able to have some kind of way that I could express myself, which I felt, commerce wasn't kind of there to give me that, that bit.
Right.
Coming from a business background, I think, like all businessmen, Dad probably in his mind had a thing that, okay, post me, my kids will join me, and they'll take it on and they'll take it further and stuff. Yeah. But that wasn't my cup of tea at all. I just didn't see myself doing that.
What was the trigger? How did you manage?
So I had a bit of a tough time because when I needed to go to college, it was like I didn't really want to go to another commerce college and then do my BCom, which was the standard way of doing things, and then kind of. But I didn't know what else to do. How am I kind of going to, first of all, expressing myself and telling my folks that, look, this is not something that I want to do. So the choice was kind of, either you studied a little bit more and did your commerce and all that, or just join the business.
Correct.
Which again I didn't want to do. I mean, it wasn't for me, I thought. So there was a period that I was kind of, I would say, lost. Because I didn't know where to turn to. It was very difficult for me. I wasn't able to kind of really communicate that, look, I just want to do something. I remember I had a friend of mine who was, who did plus 2 with me, and then he was going to go off to the US for his engineering. So in that, Josh, I also, applied for and got my, the internet wasn't that big those days, so you had to write off and get your brochures and things like that. So,
for the universities?
For the universities. So the universities in America, art colleges and, all of those, I was like really excited and, And then at some point, you just look at the whole thing, and I don't know, something in you just like, how am I going to be doing all this? First of all, it's just the monetary side of it. I don't know. Maybe if I'd actually drummed up the courage and asked my dad and really spoken to him, maybe he may have said, okay, go.
Yeah.
But I couldn't bring myself to do that.
Yeah, it's not easy.
So the result was that then my dad started trying to get me involved in the business. I was just completely disinterested. And then, a few years went by, and I was just getting more and more, I think, just a downward spiral for me personally. It was a very deep, dark hole that I was going into because I just wasn't able to see a way forward. My brother, I think at one point, did a little bit of, he wanted to do screen printing. And so as a part of that, somebody advised him that, you need to do a course, you need to know a little bit about, paste up art and stuff like that. So he found a place where he could do a course,
okay,
in commercial art, so to speak. And I still remember the day, and he did the first day. I didn't know that he'd done that, but he went and he came back home, and he had, the board and the things, and I was just sitting there. He just flung it across the room, and he said, "What nonsense is this? I don't want to do all this, So I went and picked the thing up, and it was just right up my alley, it's something else which I wanted to do.
Interesting.
So I just jumped at the chance. I said, I'll do it. So luckily the fees had already been paid and all that. So I was able to take it on, so to speak.
So your art journey, well, you had a sense what you don't want to do, but what you want to do stuff was not very clear.
Yeah.
And this one incident kind of just kicked it off for you as
they say that, you clutch at straws when you're really kind of desperate. So partly it was a bit of that, but then also it opened out a whole kind of a world to me. I was able to do the course. It was a very basic course, but it gave me that opening to be able to then, get into advertising agencies as a, initially as a paste up artist, which is like really the bottom rung, but for me, it was, it's the first step of 1,000 steps in my journey. So I just took to it, like a duck to water, and I really worked very hard and stuff like that. So that's where the journey started.
So how did the change happen from just art, basic art?
Yeah.
How did the camera came into picture?
So initially it's all a learning process. You don't know very much, so you're dependent on. And I was lucky that I've always had very good people above me who are kind of instructing me and teaching me and stuff like that. So I was part of a few ad agencies, and I think a couple of years down the line, one of the agencies I joined, we had a campaign that we were doing which required a bit of photography. So I got along very well with him. So he said, "Hey, let's go. We've got a shoot today, and let's go and check it out." So went for the shoot, and I still just remember being completely
lost.
Taken up by the whole thing. It was as if a light bulb had just gone on, in me somewhere, and it was like, this is what I really want to be doing.
Awesome.
I just suddenly found my calling. It was as simple as that. I walked in there and I walked out a different person, and I had just decided. I said, this is what I want to do. I mean, I had no clue how I'm going to do it, where do I start or what, but I decided that that's what I want to do. So I in those days, photography, like filmmaking, these are all expensive hobbies to have, because you need to have, we used to shoot on film in those days.
Yeah.
So you had to have money to even take pictures and process them, that whole thing, right? So it was kind of considered a little bit like a rich person's thing. Where do you start? But okay, my dad had also been quite into all this. We had a little Yashica camera, so I quickly started to now take an interest in that, try reading books and trying to kind of educate myself on what the basics are of photography. Took over one of the bathrooms at home and converted it into a darkroom, got an enlarger from somewhere and started printing and stuff like that. So it was like really, because this whole world had opened up to me and I just wanted more of it.
And this was like you were doing it very happily, your emotions were
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, for the first time in my life, I just felt like I just lost myself in it. I didn't need to be told by anybody. I think when you're doing something you're really passionate about, then that's that, right? Nothing else exists for you. So I was completely, in that. And then, so how do you get to learn? Because you want to progress, right? So in those days, what you had to do is you had to work for somebody to learn the ropes. And for me, the only person I knew was that person where we had gone to, do the shoot.
Right.
Radha. He was one of the top photographers in Bangalore. In India, I would say. Very, very brilliant guy, I'm still in touch with him, very close to him. And I think he looked at me and probably just thought, okay, this guy, he's from a business background. He's just doing it as a whim. He's not really, doesn't have it in him to do it.
Correct.
So he refused outright. He said, I'm sorry, but whatever. But I'd already decided. So, with him or without him, I was going to do it. But he was good enough to kind of entertain me every now and then. I used to keep going to him and have a little chat and all that. In the meantime, there was another photographer who would come over from Bombay who was looking for some, for an assistant, because he was shooting he was doing a book on temples in South India.
Okay.
And he wanted somebody who spoke the lingo, so to speak, Kerala and all that. I was not very good at Malayalam, but then much better than him, so he would know the difference. So I said yes, to him.
He tagged along.
And tagged along and, started doing the usual things that an assistant does. But pretty soon I realized that his forte was something else, and the photography that I'd gotten exposed to at Radha's place was very different. But I stuck it out. And then at some point, one of my visits to Radha, he had a space and he said, are you still interested? He'd seen me, he knew what I was doing. I jumped at the offer, and from there my journey really started actually, He was a very busy photographer. So, the thing about advertising photography is that every day you're working on a different thing. So the variety is there.
Right.
You're learning, a whole lot of skills, but doing it in a different environment every day. We used to shoot, now you have specialized people to shoot everything. But in those days, an advertising photographer did everything. So, I did fashion, you did your billboards, and you did your tabletops and your special effects and everything. And it was like a really...
So what triggered the next phase, which was like really a big thing? So this is really awesome, one journey settling in here, spending time finding your path and, getting into, but then next phase, moving to London seems to be a very big...
I was quite sold on that, right? I mean, that was going to be my life. I had decided, right? Being able to use, your skills, using images to elicit emotions from people, to tell stories. The big story bits came later, but still, to try and get messages across. So at a certain point, then, you feel that you need to have your own style. You need to kind of strike out on your own.
Right.
And with Radha's blessings, I opened my own studio in Bangalore, and I started doing commercial work. And just around that time, I kind of got an opportunity to go to the UK. Again, folks were a little, you just set up, you're doing well. What is it? Why do you really want to go? But I've always had this thing that, I don't want to ever have regrets about things.
Okay.
I didn't want to later on regret that I hadn't taken that opportunity when it came. I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do there, how I was going to, but I thought I'll follow a similar pattern, right? I'll go, I'll find work as an assistant to a photographer, and then slowly I'll find my own feet, and I'll start working there, etc., etc. I was familiar with the work happening there because as a, in the advertising field, you keep your eyes open, and you a lot of, you do get inspired by work that you see in the West at that time, especially. So I just went. And of course things never work out the way you really want them to. I went there and I tried to get to work as an assistant, and I don't know what it was. It was, I'm also talking about the late 80s, right? Probably a little different time.
But you wrapped your studio here, or was it like you wrapped your stuff?
I kind of wrapped it up, yes, because your clients and stuff like that, so you have to tell them that. So I wrapped everything up and I went.
So you did make that move in terms of literally opening a new phase of your life. This is not just testing water.
No, absolutely. Okay. So it was, but then as I said, I wasn't able to really make much headway because I just felt the environment wasn't that conducive at that time. It was like almost, you're from India, there's not, what do you know about advertising? So I felt that a lot. And I was like, by then I'd done a lot of work here. It was like, okay, so I had to kind of within a few months, about 6-7 months of being there, when this wasn't working out, I had to decide, where am I going from here? What is it that I'm going to do, right?
Wow.
Go back, one option,
yeah.
but I didn't want to just give up. There were a lot of things about the place that I did start to like, and the professionalism and all that. And so I started really searching around. I knew that it had to be something creative because that's what drives me.
Sure.
A lot of people, once they get to the West, it becomes a thing of that, okay, I'm here now, I've got to stay here. What I do doesn't really matter regardless of what. I have to make sure that I'm here, I don't want to go back.
Yeah. Especially those time, like you just basic stuff, settling in, figuring things out.
But it never was that for me.
Yeah.
I knew that if things didn't really work out, or if I was unhappy about things, I could always come back and start my practice again.
You had a safety net, and
it was kind of a safety net, you could say. Luckily family was quite, I think, so I started looking around, and then I discovered this whole world of independent filmmaking, right? And it was a similar thing that, here I needed a radar to be able to let me get my hands on professional equipment. Anything you want to be able to do, you need to. Other than going to film school,
correct,
where you can kind of, get your hands, how do you do it, right? And at that point, I just felt that, I'd done so much, I didn't really want to go to film school. Though later on, some years down the line, I did actually think that maybe that was a better way, because getting into the industry. But at that point, I searched out, they had, workshops, etc. over there. Independent filmmaking in the UK was quite established at that point. So you had a whole stream of independent filmmakers who were out there, not working outside of the system in a way,
right.
Making very independent, quirky films, and their voice kind of making it heard. I had the background of being a photographer,
right?
So the way the way film worked was very easy for me to pick up. I think the way film was exposed, those kind of things. So the workshops that I went to, most people came there with the intention of becoming directors, right? Everybody wanted to be, I want to direct. They all needed somebody to shoot their films, and I was placed right there. I knew how cameras work, etc. And so I got to shoot a lot of short films at that point, which was great for me because I was just learning a hell of a lot as I was going along. I was playing around, with different emulsions and with different kind of ways of processing and editing.
So you were learning on the field.
I was just I believe that if you want to get into some field, you need to know. So cinematography came naturally to me because of my photography background.
Right.
I just took to it very, very naturally, right? And that opened up the whole thing. So then I just, I just became a cinematographer, working on films for independent filmmakers there.
Right.
And that's where that journey started then. Yes.
So it's very interesting. I mean, your journey has a pattern. Looks like there is a calling. You have not just kind of, you'll be giving it moment to settle down, find that out, and then go all out and just take it whatever is available, like go with the gut feeling, settling yourself in, but not kind of lowering your ambition part of the stuff, and then you go out to the next one. And looks like every journey has its own your challenges, your rough weathers, and then the opportunity in terms of learning has been really great. And I clearly see that one of the things which is really coming out is your way of looking at things. Just jump in and you get it, something you just learn on the job. And what about in this journey, especially when I'm talking about London journey now, what were the thing which came as a storm for you? Which is stuff where you felt like, okay, this is great, I've got an opportunity, but then there's so much other thing which are pulling you down. Was there any of those moments?
I think, yeah, I subscribe to the view of the old thing, of the artist, sitting in the attic and painting away, and he's really oblivious to the rest of the world. And so my approach has always been that I just give myself completely to my art or whatever I'm following, my craft, and everything else just recedes in the background. Not always the best way to do things, because in some ways you need to find a balance. One is that you don't want to burn yourself out too soon, because then you tend to do that, right? Because if you want longevity in in a certain field, you need to learn the ropes, a lot of things outside, especially something like, filmmaking is something that is teamwork. It's not, unlike doing photography,
right?
One man with a camera going out and taking pictures is very different to an entire crew going out and then from, writing a script, getting a story to actually shooting the film, doing pre-production, doing, filming it, then editing it, and then actually looking at, post that what's going to happen with the finished product. It's a huge ecosystem.
Right.
I have utmost respect for people who make films because I've been through the journey, and I've also done, I went up to the level of making feature films also independently.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for that, but given at that time, also you're young and you do kind of, have a little bit of impatience. I feel that the years that I felt were wasted, if I'd gotten into the whole journey, my whole journey much earlier, maybe things would have been a little different. So I think I was always pushing myself to overreach, to reach further than maybe I was probably even ready for maybe at that time.
So if you have to go back and see that you could have done little things differently, what would have that been?
Possibly been a little more patient. With
Patient
myself.
Okay.
I was very harsh on myself. I just wanted to be able to, as I said, the step up from doing, photography to films, and from doing films to feature film work, which, let's say you want to join it, get a foothold in the industry and start doing, making films that everybody in the world are going to watch. It is a step, definitely a few steps up.
Right.
And, there is a lot of merit in actually going through the steps where you are, picking up some of the ropes that you go as you go along.
Yeah.
So I just felt I was ready to shoot, anything, a feature if it came by. I was reading a lot about independent filmmakers who were just making films on the fly. Guerrilla filmmakers, Al Mariachi, and those kind of guys. And Tarantino had just come out. His thing was just go and shoot. Don't worry about anything else. You have to just be doing. So I was very much that bent of mind. But as time went on, then I got a little bit more, I think, wiser to the way these things work. It's not as simple as that.
Right.
Yes, it is simple that you shoot and then you edit and all that. But there's a lot that goes into it beyond that. But yeah, so my journey from there, I then got into the BBC as a cameraman.
Yeah, and that was
so that was the next step for me, which was a great thing, adventure, because all that you hear about the BBC and all that it is all of that.
And that was like a pinnacle of the best standard.
Absolutely.
Production of that movie.
It was, and just being in there, and they have a very kind of the way they get you into the whole thing. It's not that they're taking you on and then you just do what you want. They take you through the ropes, so we were sent to, they have a couple of facilities where they take you through the whole thing about, film works in a different way. Television, what do we know about television? We look at a screen and, we see an image come there. How has the image come onto that television screen when it's being beamed from somewhere, across the world? What is at play here? The signal that gets transmitted and broken down into the colors and comes back and magically gets put together again. So they give you all of that background. They want you to understand that before you actually, get behind the camera and start shooting. They just don't give you a camera and say, okay, go film this or do this. They teach you. So that was a wonderful, wonderful thing. It was great. And, the kind of people that I was working with, very experienced people. They've been working in some of the people have been working in the BBC for about 20, 30 years, 25 years, which at that time for me, 25-year-old, 30-year-old guy is like, wow, this guy is, he's been working here a lot longer than I've even been here,
So how long was the journey in BBC?
BBC was a few years.
Okay.
But for me, more than that, I think also to make a big place like the BBC work, they have to be very regimented in terms of their departments.
Yeah, they are set up. There's a organization at play, and the process has to be there. Yeah.
And so after a certain point, I just started to get a little itchy feet. I was always more interested in the totality. I want to know about how, if a film is put together, I'm not happy just being behind the camera. I want to know how's the performance being, put together, what happens behind, what's this, what about the lighting and all that, because that's just me, right? And so there, as a cameraman, I was expected to not really do very much else, and in fact, it was not looked upon very, very, they just wanted you to be focusing on that.
Right.
And so at a certain point, I just decided that I wanted more out of life for me. The filmmaking thing was still, the bug was still there with me very much. I wanted to be able to go out and
Did you land up
and make
making
films.
anything?
Yes, I did. Subsequent to
great.
that, so at some point I decided that this is not really, it's okay, but I don't want to be just pointing a camera and there's a director in the galley telling me, okay, give me a close up now. Okay, now go to a wide, and how long can you do that, right? At least for me, it wasn't the right thing. It was
next step, yeah.
Like you said, at one level it was like the pinnacle. Anybody's saying, oh wow, this is the BBC. But it depends on what you want at that particular point in life. So I opted out. I went back to independent filmmaking, and then started shooting again, other people's films. But then was more interested in putting films together now. How does one actually get a project off the ground? So from a producer perspective, I started looking at things.
Wow.
So there was a friend of mine who I'd shot a few films for. They'd gone on to festivals, they'd done very well and all that. I felt his writing was very good. Writing was something that fascinated me then. Seeing the words on the page, because you start with the script, you start with the story in the script. If you don't have that, you don't have a film.
Yeah.
So we got together and we kind of formed a company there in the UK.
Wow.
And we decided that we were going to go out and make a feature film. Okay. Wanting it, saying it is one thing, but doing it is completely,
Absolutely, and
it was that entire, thing, and it was done that I would be doing the cinematography and he would be directing it, but we were both also producers. So that was an entire new thing, how does, the wheeling dealing that happens, how do you get a budget together, etc., etc. So huge steep learning curve there also, how do we get there now? What's the next thing to do to get this film done?
Right.
And that took its time. And again, youth, impatient, you want to do stuff. So we at a certain point we managed to get some money together, but there was shortfall, and we just decided to, like an artist would, you just put all your money up front and you say, let's just make the film. So we fronted up all our savings and we just spent it on the film. And did on Super 16 because we wanted it to be able to project it in the cinemas and stuff like that. So it graduated up.
What's that as a format? Which is a big
it's a larger format. So it's 16 frame, but the perforations are not there on one side. So it gives you a bigger, you can say a bigger sensor. So in today's parlance, you would say it was a bigger sensor. So when it gets blown up onto the screen, it won't lose its clarity. It'll still be looking nice, big enough to blow up. So we did all that, so that was a very interesting journey, because I saw that for the first time, kind of from the time it was written on the page to the time that we actually projected it, on the screen. Wow. Casting, having auditions for actors, casting for actors. And that's when I really realized, and my appreciation for the whole art of the whole filmmaking really grew a lot. Because till then it was a very inward thing. Yeah, I'm doing my job. I'm making sure that the frame is looking good. Right. But that's not what a film is all about. It's the story that has to get onto and how everybody works to do that, right? I mean, the actors there are very, very professional. I'd never seen anything like it. People when they come in for readings, and these are people who've done years of theatre, and they were from the Royal Shakespeare Company, they were from National Theatre, from there coming in for readings because they wanted to be part of this project. So it was really good. It was awesome.
You have done literally the whole 9 years of the filmmaking journey.
Yeah.
And also coming with an experience of just doing the basic photography. So your cinematography part of the stuff was already more matured, I would say, than anybody else will start on the journey. What was the most fascinating part of the filmmaking which you really liked about, out of all the various facets of it? I mean,
I think to start off with, for me, it was just the joy of seeing your work, being able to use your work to add to the story. Okay, how best to tell the story as a cinematographer? What is it that I am doing, which is helping the director get his message across,
right,
or entertain, or whatever, or it could be. So for me, that was really, because I'd always done that, having the power of doing that, actually being in a darkened room, having your work there, and at the right spaces, you audibly hear people take a breath in because of something that you've done, which is translated onto screen. That joy is being something that really, having that power in your hands is really something that it's like a high.
Being able to create that moment with your craft.
Absolutely, you know. But then subsequently, as I went on along, I started to get more interested in the stories themselves.
Oh, okay.
Because I realized that's where it's really at, you know. So my focus shifted to actually wanting to write myself. I felt by then that I'd, seen enough of life and, learned enough from. Of course, it's always a work in progression, but I just got very, very wanting to kind of, now be the storyteller,
Right.
than just be a cog in the wheel. I want to be the one that was actually telling my stories, my perspective.
Okay.
You know?
Did that open up a new chapter?
So actually what happened was around that time when I did the first feature, I'd been working non-stop, without any kind of let up for almost a decade, right? More than a decade actually. And in some ways I just felt, I'd kind of exhausted myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just given it all I had. And so I needed to recharge. I came back to India for a holiday.
Okay.
And during the time I was here...
This was how much time did you spend in London?
15 years, 14, 15 years.
But this entire stuff is 15 years.
Yeah. It was just non-stop, head down, forget about everything else, just work, work.
Wow.
So it just caught up with me, I think, in the end. Finally, everything just happened. And then I came back for a holiday. I was spent in some ways. I just needed to recharge. I needed to just go back to the basics. So I came back and didn't do very much actually for a short while. And then circumstances, happened in such a way that, they made me reassess my life actually. I was very close to my mother and always felt that, I wanted to spend time with her.
Right.
But, you think you have all the time in the world to do that. And that particular visit, my mother fell ill and then she was hospitalized and then she passed away. And for me, that was like a wake-up call in some ways, The start of, I think, a journey of also being mindful about yourself and about things happening around you. Till then, it had just been about me. Okay, how am I going to learn? How am I going to get? I want to make a career, etc., etc. And suddenly, I just sat there and thought that, the choice that I felt I had, of being able to spend time with my mother and with, I don't have that choice anymore. And I didn't like that feeling. It was like, I can't do anything about it now. So somewhere deep down, I just felt that, I didn't want the same thing to happen with my dad. My dad was still around then, and the rest of the family. I think those support structures do matter. I just decided I wanted to come back. I said, okay, I'll make films here. I also realized, I also was of the thing that, if you want to make a film, you can actually make a film from anywhere.
Correct.
I don't necessarily need to be there to be able to make a film. I
think 15 years is a very long time to be able to,
Yeah.
I mean, you literally spend your prime youth
Yes,
in that
did.
place, in that craft, and
Yeah. It wasn't easy in some ways, but in some ways it was also very easy,
Yeah.
I think some of the things that, I probably missed about here, and some of the things about that place which I wasn't quite prepared to just take on at face value, There was a certain amount of racism that was there around, which I think did in some way kind of, I was always very
Wary about it.
aware and wary of it, wary
So
about
you-
it. I didn't want that to face that bit. Yeah.
So when you were in India, you had this mentor who literally showed you the path where you had the light bulb moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it really comes across that individual was your lighthouse for that, your photography journey. But in the 15 years in London, was there any lighthouse moment for you or individual or scenario? How did you manage to just run through such a long period?
I think you just, the need to do something, the way it opens up by itself. But yes, definitely, I think that the need for a kind of a mentor was definitely felt. I think now looking back, especially at the whole journey,
has somebody to,
I said if I had somebody to give me the right advice at the right time, I think the story would have been a little different, The impetuousness of youth that I had, which I was just rushing into things, if I just taken a little bit of a step back and approached it in a slightly more measured manner,
correct.
I think the story would have been different. Yeah. But it's okay. I mean, you learn as you go along.
Absolutely.
So I've learned not to regret, as I said before, about anything that you do. Yeah. I did it in the right spirit at that time.
Absolutely.
But yes, a mentor would have been very, very useful, and I think having somebody like that is very important in life. You do need.
So if you have to, and you're right. I mean, I think at the hindsight of it, everything just fits in. Like we are fitting in 15 years of life, saying that it's okay, but it is actual 15 years. And what I really see is that you are so involved into it, and everything was happening. There was no time for anything else. We just moved on, but 15 years passed. Yeah. And that is such a common thing. So many people in the midlife just go through the path, and by the time the realization happened that you could have done something different, it's only through your life experience. And of course, I think you can put a lens from a hindsight and justify that part of the stuff. But that little one pause to be able to have somebody out there, or even a reflection moment, and in your case, for you coming back and reflecting, as your mother passed away, something. Something where people can learn. People can you can look at other people's stories and be able to say, can I do things differently? And I think to me that is more powerful. About your story, what has unfolded. What next? So, knowing you, I know you came back to India, but your story does not end there. You are constantly reinventing yourself, and then it's a totally different trajectory. Share something about that.
I don't know. I think all said and done, after resisting my dad's thing about being an entrepreneur and all that, and saying it's not cut out for me. I think somewhere deep down, probably, there's more of it in me than I really give it credit for.
Yes, there in
thanks
the
to
genes.
him, it's there in the genes, probably. I got back, and then I slotted into the filmmaking thing, but not the movie making straight away.
And by that time, a lot of stuff would have changed back here home, right?
That was the other thing. I came back, and everybody that I knew had just kind of moved on or moved away or whatever. So it was like starting from scratch again. And the scene had changed a lot. Radha was still around. He'd started making movies by then. Okay. And there were a lot of other things also that were happening, So you needed to slot into a certain kind of a thing if you wanted to be an ad filmmaker or whatever. And his warning to me was, are you sure you're going to need to be able to, are you going to be able to do all of that it requires? So for me, I think anything that's above board and on the level I'm okay with, but if it requires things to be done, which I'm not very comfortable with, then I tend not to want to go there at all.
That's interesting. So basically what you're saying is that you need to know your space, you need to know where you perform the best, you need to know where you are most comfortable.
Yes.
And that's where I think happens.
I think ethics form the bedrock for me for how I do things, and if you the message was that if you want to get work in agencies and things like that, there's a certain role you have to play. You have to facilitate things for people. You have to pay money to get work.
Okay. So you're talking about there's a conflict in terms of your value system.
There was
the way the industry you were in operation.
Yes, yes, there was, and that's something I was not comfortable with at all.
Okay.
So I didn't go back to any of the agencies that I'd worked with before. I didn't call into any of them. I did a little bit, but then I very quickly got a sense that what Radha told me was actually true.
Okay.
So I'm not passing judgment here. It's the way work was being got, and so you either be there and you're a wheeler dealer and you get the work and you do your justice, or if it's somebody like me, then you try and find alternate ways. So I started getting approaching people directly and getting work to do corporate films and that kind of thing. I did some music videos. We shot something together too, and stuff like that. So that was there, but that can only take you so far. But it was okay. I think by then I'd also kind of, I was also looking at this whole thing of, let me just kind of, settle down a little bit. But around that time also, there was this thing that came up, where this, itch that needed to be scratched. I, wanted to open a kind of a cafe, that suddenly came out of somewhere, and I just got very fired up by the idea. And decided to open up, a cafe. I wanted it to be linked in some way to my photography and film. So my idea was to make a theme, a kind of a restaurant cafe, where people, creative people could come. Because I'd been in the West, I used to go to art galleries a lot, but in my experience, even people who are in the industry very rarely make the time to go out and actually see things, and especially galleries and art and stuff like that.
Correct.
So
that is still true. I mean,
it's still true, very much so. But then people will always make the time to go out and enjoy themselves over a beer, or sit down in a restaurant and meet people and do that. So I thought I'll put the two together.
And Bangalore seemed to be a perfect place to do this.
Absolutely, it was. Yeah. So let's do a little thing. Let's get people in. So the idea to open this, have a little space where you could for creative people to come and hobnob and over a beer or whatever was there. So I got into this whole project again. Like all my other projects, not having a clue about what really it takes to do it. Have the seed of an idea, but then get so enthused by it that you decide to just go all out. So I kind of started the process of opening this restaurant. And I had a little place, and I started converting into this. And some way down the line, before we'd actually opened officially, we were doing our trial runs and tastings and all that, all new things for me. It's all very exciting and all that. And then I had some people in who were also I had a kind of a mentor there who had come in for that part of it, because I didn't know much about the whole restaurant business. And he said, look, you've got to start operations, otherwise, you've already gotten a whole, battery of people in, and you've started paying them, etc. My advice is to just start quickly, and work was still going on in the place, wires hanging and all that. So in the corner, just around the corner, we had a small space that, I was going to have a little delicatessen, much like the ones I'd seen, in London, where you can come in and you can choose your things and get a sandwich made, fresh stuff and all like that.
Wow.
So that space was there, which was kind of ready in a way, but not. My wife, by then I'd met Nama and we were married. She's a bit of a foodie herself. So she said, look, why don't we just open a small chart counter over there? And then when this work gets done, you can, your vision and whatever it is you can do.
Right.
So I said, okay, sounds good. So we opened a small chart counter there. And the first day when we opened, the first few vehicles that, went past, we put a small sign saying, what Dilli Chaatwala or whatever name. They just screeched to a halt, and then they kind of reversed and came to the place, and before I knew it, there were like hordes of people outside, coming to try what we had. Very authentic, very good food it was. And, and I was there holding forth about my vision for this place, and I was going to be doing this and that. And on the second or third day, it started raining outside. And people didn't have a place to. There was a big bunch of people. They said, open the door and let us in, because, how can you make us stand in the rain? So we opened the place, and there was hardly, tables scattered around and wires hanging. And the place just got full, And I was like standing near the door thinking, that I don't know what this is. What's really happening here? And I don't know what it was, but somehow, the idea of, following through, with what I had in mind just seemed suddenly became a lot more daunting to me, just for that period of time. I don't know.
Moment.
And I said, whatever this is, this seems to be working.
Right.
Who am I to be trying to kind of, this is how a restaurant should be run, etc. I just told my wife, I said, let's just go with this, whatever it is. Let's do it in a full-fledged North Indian restaurant. It's working, and Gharai Lakshmi ko, they say, that kind of thing. I just went all in. And
then you were just sucked in.
Before I knew it, I was just sucked into, being a restaurateur, and that was a journey in itself,
And that journey, Sudhir, lasted 7 years almost?
Yes, I ran it for 7 and a bit years.
And how you felt during the journey? I know initial period was being overwhelmed. You had an itch to scratch in terms of, started with the romanticized idea of having a coffee shop.
Yeah.
But if reflecting back, do you think that in all of this process you're looking at somewhere in terms of your creative side of the stuff or the art side of the stuff being fulfilled? And I mean, the way I see creativity for me is just not about just doing art, like, just artist part, but you can be creative in anything. Do you think you were bringing some of those elements in your even restaurant experience itself?
I definitely did. I think I was in many ways. But at the end of the day, it's also business.
Right.
And it needs to be run along certain lines, and you need to be, So they say that once, in the restaurant business, in your second year, you need to start thinking about, and opening your second units and third units, and because you need to grow it, right?
Okay.
It's not ideal to just have one outlet, because the problems that you face with one outlet become a lot easier when you have multiple outlets, because the biggest problem is getting manpower, workforce.
Correct.
So if you have more units, you can move them around and you can kind of manage the show. Whereas if you have just one outlet and you're short of people, it becomes very difficult,
And that's the reason why people open up.
That's the reason why people open up.
But that's interesting because, yes, you're right. I mean, I think I've seen very similar journeys.
Yeah.
But then that's the way I've seen the whole thing growing up and declining also.
Yes, yeah. That's so with me, basically, I had an ideal of how places should be run.
Right.
And my idea was still that I'm going to be, doing my other work, but I didn't have the time for that anymore. But my thing was that I'm always going to get back. This is not my be all and end all. I want this place to be able to run by itself, but it has to run in a certain way. I was very, very particular about, about hygiene, about the kind of things that we were putting in the food, about the experience that I was giving, to the patrons who were coming in. So those things were very dear to me. Otherwise, I didn't want to be a part of it.
So it's interesting. So here also you kind of held on to a certain way of looking at life, certain way of standard, and not following the traditional path of going ahead and immediately opening up next place, but you continued giving the best, both for yourself from your side and also to your customer.
Yeah.
And blink of eye, 7 years just went past.
Yes, absolutely. And so for me, basically, at that time, then I realized that, things have to either shape up or something has to give.
Right.
The business itself was becoming, it wasn't falling into place the way I'd wanted it to, so that I could open another lot or, get somebody in or whatever it was. And so I just decided at one point, that I said it's better to just opt out of it. If it's not working the way I want it to work, I think now's the time to, basically back out of it or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And so I decided to close, and that's 7 years. I learned a lot, it was a huge learning experience.
Yeah, I think any of these journeys are amazing.
Yeah, not always very pleasant, but then that's the way it is, So you learning to deal with bureaucracy, with government servants and departments and all that, and that really wore me down quite a lot, And also having to manage the staff and things like that, I expected them. I from my side, I was very, honest and very, wanting the right thing for them. But I think the industry is such a place, the hotel industry, the hospitality industry, that most of the people working in it have been exploited. Experiences of being exploited would probably have been a part of them.
Right.
So looking at me, they would have thought, how is it going to be any different, right? So they were not really willing to change, from small things like, just the standard of hygiene, which I was very, very particular about. It was one of the most, bug points for me that, it has to match up, otherwise I'm not going to be wanting to be a part of this, because that's what I expect, of myself. I should be able to come to my own restaurant and, eat the food there without having to, worry about anything.
Is that the reason you don't really prefer to eat outside?
Yeah, I think I've seen it from close up. So once you've done that, you realize what really goes into it. I'm not saying everybody's like that. There are a lot of very, very, good people out there. But, there's one aspect of it being a passion for somebody and following it for that. Yeah. And there's another one where it's a business.
Right.
And when it's just a business, you're always going to have this, because something somewhere's got to give, and people are going to cut corners here or there, and then it starts to tell,
Right.
So,
Right.
so I decided to,
So now, Sudhir, you're on the right side of 60s.
Yeah.
You're again back to writing scripts. You have a formal setup. Red Mulberry Studio is what you have set up.
Yeah.
What are you? I mean, this is amazing. First of all, like we are really, as if there are 3 or 4 journeys which you have made. Like it's a very long journey which you have made, and so many transitions.
Yeah.
What next?
I don't feel I'm done.
Absolutely not. I mean, that's very much visible. Yes,
I just
yes.
have. I don't think I'm ever
Yeah.
going to hang up my boots, so to speak. I just feel that, the fire still burns within me. But this thing about writing, is something that I've really been taken up now. I've always dabbled in it. When I was doing some of my short films, I would kind of, write the script for that and do it. But that was from a visual storyteller I think at that point.
Okay.
It was all about the visuals because of my cinematography, background and all that. Everything was about visuals, right? There is so much more that goes into making a film,
Absolutely.
So all those layers are things that I have subsequently learned about, and it all starts with writing, of course. You need to have, and I feel now, I've done a couple of films subsequently since then, and I'm really enjoying the process of writing, and the aim of actually getting to do features again is like that thing is
exciting.
Like now exciting me very much again.
Right.
I'm also at a point now where I feel I have the bandwidth to be able to do things. My daughter's just gone off to college, and I have the time and the space now to just. I don't believe in half measures. If you want to do something, you really need to throw yourself into it fully.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think the time is right for me to be able to do that. So I've started that process. I'm just in prep for a short film that I'm going to be shooting next year, and then following that up with another script that I've done, just to grease the wheels again a little bit and to get myself back into the whole kind of scene. Post that, then I'm there's a feature script that I'm working on, which I want to try and not to get ahead of myself, but the aim is that maybe in a couple of years or so, I should be able to try and
Awesome. I mean, that sounds
get the
so
feature
great.
film off the ground.
So Sudhir, for somebody, and especially this whole conversation for us is all about being able to bring the journeys from our guests. Especially, you have so many layers to it, and one of the things which is very common for especially people coming from this part of the world, where you are torn apart between your family expectation and something which you want to do, and even the realization what you want to do does not happen very naturally, organically, very early. You have to go through your own journeys to figure out. In your case, you have made so many effort to journeys to bring it to a conclusion where today this at this phase of the life you are again going to go back and do it, which is really awesome. What would be your lighthouse moment advice or summary to folks who are in the same situation, how they should be handling this situation?
I think it's very important to have a dream in the first place, right? You need to have a passion for something that drives you. Making money is just a corollary of anything. I think it should not just be. I mean, of course,
it's a byproduct, basically.
It's a byproduct, and that's the best way to have it. There are some people who just want to make money, and how they make it, it doesn't matter to them. So it becomes a different game. But for me, I think if you're following your passion, the rest of it then does fall into place. But what you get back from that, but it's a dream that you need to hold on to. And you need to find a balance in life when you're doing that. When you're young, obviously you have a lot more energy, you have a lot more going for you, and there are a lot less distractions. You can be very single-minded and focused about it. And then as you move into life, different phases of your life, you need to give equal attention to other things. Could be whatever it is, right? If your family, if you get married and your kids. Maybe your parents are aging or whatever. But through all of that, I think you need to hold on to that kernel of that truth of what really matters to you, and to be able to kind of just single-mindedly be, it will happen, in some form or the other. It's not a given that, you're going to be, successful to the level that you thought you might be or whatever, but I think if you keep at it, then the success does come. But also that you need to, I think, everything needs to be in balance. I think that for me is kind of the learning now as you said yourself, at this point in my life. I feel that, mindfulness in things that I do make me a better person in a way. And would make me a better filmmaker, would make me a better storyteller also. I think.
That's interesting. You brought the, subject of mindfulness, and I know you are into, you take care of your health very well, you're into yoga, and you are also into music. Can you share a little bit about how these things, peripheral stuff which you do for yourself, help you in terms of centering yourself? What's been your experience in terms of value?
Actually, going back, yoga goes back to my dad again. When we were little, still I remember we were in 4th, 5th standard and all that. My dad had a yoga teacher, one a very famous guy, who was a very proper yoga guy, who would come home, every day and take yoga classes for us. At 4:30 in the morning, we were in our langots, doing yoga and all that. And somewhere along the way, so my dad was of that bent of the mind. I think he was way ahead of his time, really into kind of very grounded, but and at some point, as you grow up, you just get distracted by things, and then you just lose the. I've been sporty all through. I've done a lot of sport in school and college, and otherwise also kept myself there. But the practice of yoga itself, I think for people, it's a pillar actually in a way, that if you can, have it in your life, it really grounds and centers you, and puts everything else in perspective.
Correct.
And it's a very good way to keep, obviously to keep healthy. If you want to do work, you need to be healthy to be able to do it.
Correct.
I'm saying I'm going to work till I hang up my boots. I need to be healthy for that, right? Making a film is not easy. It's a very physically demanding work.
Physically tasking.
So, knowing that that's what it's going to take, I have to make sure that I take care of myself also. So yoga has, yoga, and then by corollary meditation, which kind of centers you and calms you down. I think that's also been a little bit of a thing because, you can let your emotions sometimes override, but if you're in control of things, then you take the right decisions, and it's important to do that. At least I realize now, there is a thing for Jazba and to have that kind of thing and all that. And music, I've always loved music. I've played the guitar since I was a kid. Always, and the flute we took up and we started doing a little bit and stuff. But it forms a central part of kind of, for me, music has been a consistent thing in my life throughout, for as long as I can remember.
Right.
So I still, now more than any other time, I make sure I practice and I do riyaz. I pick up my guitar every day, whether it's for 10 minutes or whether it's for an hour, but I will pick it up and I will, do that because it just centers me and it gives me a lot of pleasure, Yeah,
there's so much which is now, we hear so much scientifically also proven that these are the things which you get into your daily habit, which keeps you centered, and music or any hobby or, But you're right, I think the key point is that this is anything which you do in this world is pretty much you do in this body. I mean, this is, and you have to take care of it.
Right.
That is, and in your case, writing this inning again at this phase of your life, you're able to do with that kind of zeal and passion is all because you have taken care of your body so well. So one thing is very, clear, Sudhir, from your journey. The creativity track is never a straight track, right? This is always has, but I think what I really liked about your track is that each of the deviations were a preparation for the next phase, and I think I see that pattern again and again, what you have done, in a very, interesting way. And another thing is that, like many other things, as you age and, things go down, but I think creativity is one thing, an aspect of creativity, I think it just burns more brighter and you are, prime in terms of doing this again. So before we log off, and thank you for taking us through this journey, you have been an amazing navigator.
Thank you.
If you have to, as a captain of your life, leave something in the logbook for people to take back, what will that be?
I would say that, people need to have belief in themselves, and to be able to focus on what it is that they really want. Problems do come up in everybody's life. It's never, as you said, it's never a straight path. It's always, but everything, even if it's a roundabout way, if it's taking you nearer to your goal, what you want to do, then it's a positive.
Yeah.
It's never a negative. Nothing should be looked at as a negative, I think.
Yeah.
Even your worst experiences actually teach you something.
Wow.
And sometime or the other, they actually come in handy. They make you who you are, they make you stronger, they make you sturdier. I think when I was younger, a lot of things would, just chase me off but now I try not to let anything do that to me. I try and look at the positive even in that.
Right.
Because I feel it empowers me a lot more, it gives me a lot more strength. So I would say to people that, things may come in the way, clouds may obscure your lighthouse, but always have that in your life so that, you can make your way towards it, whatever that is, Yeah.
No, thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Lovely.
And all the best. with your podcast and with your journey forward. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been a great thing. I'm lucky to have friends like you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sudhir. Good.
Let's go.
Good, man. I think for nothing else, this is a story. I think it was very smooth.
Hey.
Good convo.
Thank you for watching this video. I totally understand it's not easy to watch a long podcast like this, but I'm pretty sure if you have managed to go through it, you would have had something more deeper to connect with our navigator's story. It takes a lot to build videos like this. We have put in a lot of effort to create this content, to be able to find those navigators and bring their stories to life. As we are just scanning our environment, we're talking to a lot of people. There's a lot of more interesting stuff which is there. I can promise you that we will be lining up a very, very interesting podcast similar to this today. If you like it, share it out, and if you have any specific feedback, just let us know. We will take a look at it and try to do our best to improve it for the next one. Yeah, once again, thank you very much, and I will see you again in our upcoming podcast.